5 steps to optimal health and vitality. Now the question is, what the heck is vitality and how exactly do you measure it? So how do you measure it?
How I feel.
Huh?
How I feel.
How do you feel? Okay, that might be misleading. So how would you see that someone is vital versus not vital?
Energy.
Energy. How do you see energy? Versus California. Huh?
Cleaning house.
Cleaning house. You have a lot of energy, yeah, to do whatever you need to do. What else? Movement. Huh? Alertness.
Sex.
Enthusiasm.
Sex. Did a man say that? Good. Exactly. So, all of that. But it's a strange thing because it doesn't really happen in medicine. Medicine obviously is not really concerned about vitality, nor are we really knowing what optimal health is all too much. We're specialized in disease, yeah? So our health system is not really a health system, because health doesn't appear. Just the absence of disease in the best case, but that doesn't really give you a criterion for that. So vitality is something you obviously pick up in other people. Someone is vital, means the energy flows, there's the spark in the eyes, they're excited about things, they have endurance, whatever, you know. So it's something you just see. Now, let's start with the old story. And the old story goes back to the question, if you would be in my position, let's say, you're a doctor and a new patient comes to you and they have a very toxic lifestyle, kind of standard American diet, SAD, so SAD diet, and overweight, and says, then listen, what shall I do? I feel like I urgently need to detox. I know you read this article lately, you know, detoxification is the name of the game, and detox is in. Or these old-fashioned Los Angeles ways of just losing weight. So what would you tell him? What actually would be a better modality that would increase his vitality and would move him closer to optimal health of these 2 choices? Do you have a thought on that?
Wait.
Detox.
Detox.
Wait.
Other opinions?
Food. The right food.
The right food, which is detox or weight?
Wait.
Wait.
Both.
So it's an interesting question if you think about it. But the data, it depends obviously what patient that is. If it's a healthy patient, they're not overweight, they come a woman with PMS or with migraine or with, you know, achy joints and so on. That all sounds like a detox might be just wonderful. But if that person is overweight and had a toxic lifestyle, if I push everything towards him or her losing weight, in the long run will be significantly superior to doing detoxes, unless these detoxes lead to weight loss. Interesting. Huh? Goes a little bit against the grain how we're thinking right now. And so in a certain way, weight is the core issue. Overweight is something that did not really exist in life until somewhat recently. And how we are genetically goes way back. And our genes are old genes, and normally the hunter and gatherer genes, and not McDonald's genes. Maybe in 10 years they're going to be there. In 10,000 years they're going to be there. Some of them at least. So the old story is the following. Let's say 20,000 years ago, hunting and gathering times. Agriculture is about 10,000 years, 6,000 to 10,000 years old. So there were no grains, there were no potatoes, there was nothing that we grew on the fields. It was hunting and gathering. And the hunting was normally animals that were lean, because they were not corn-fed and standing in the stable, and fattened. So they were running around. So lean animals and hunting and whatever, roots and salads and vegetables. So translated in our modern diet is basically protein and salads and vegetables, some fruit. And it was a hot summer, and there was lots of food available 20,000 years ago. And people ate what they could. And then, obviously, at a certain time in the year, famine came, winter came, whatever it was, and they didn't have a lot to store. Yeah? Bison meat doesn't store very well. At least you don't have salt, which also at that time didn't really exist. You know? So there was basically the rhythm in life, and the rhythm of how people were living was feast and famine. And feast and famine. And often, when there was a bad year, it was more famine, and when there was a good year, there was more feast. Now, over time, obviously, certain people developed who had the ability to, in the good times, gain more weight, basically have their own corn storage, yeah, or grain storage within them, so it's storage system in fat. And then they had reserves over the winter. So as you can imagine, as the story now goes on, since not just 20,000 years, but hundreds and thousands of years, these people who had the ability to store calories as fat were the old survivor types. The people who did not have that genetic trait and they ate, that they gained easily fat, were not and died out. So now, if you put that, and this word was just perfectly fine, and this was how it was. And now if you put now these people, the old survivor types, the people with the thrifty gene, the people who in our terms now have hyperinsulinism, are very efficient in utilizing calories, specifically sugar and calories. If you eat a lot of calories, whatever you eat, your insulin level will go up. Even if you don't eat sugar, just the calories will bring your insulin level up. And insulin is the storage hormone in the body. Okay, if you look at young kids or younger people who have type 1 diabetes, they do not have insulin. They're all skinny and haggard. Okay, and if you give them a ton of insulin, if you want to fatten someone, you give them insulin, and they're gonna fatten up. So that is on the base of this type that they produce more insulin. So let's say two people, one is the one type, one the other. They both eat the same amount of carbohydrates, sugar or starch, whatever. And the people with the thrifty gene will throw out more insulin and will more efficiently utilize these calories and store them as fat for the next winter. Okay? Now, obviously, if there's only feast and no famine, it's good for us psychologically, it's good for us because we have security, we don't have to worry, you know, all the catastrophic aspects of life are diminished, but the old rhythm is a totally different one. And now we only gain weight, and people who have the genetic type even gain more weight, and we never have the fasting. You know, if you're maybe Irish and Catholic, or you know, you have that still, because at least you do Lent or other traditions, or Ramadan or whatever, you know, you fast. So in many religions that tradition is maintained, but you know, most people don't practice that. And so we store and store and store. And if you look back, there is not anything in history like an obese caveman. Okay? I look seriously everywhere. No obese cavemans. They don't exist. Okay? So it's a very new phenomenon. But, and this is now where this concept comes in, the Paleolithic concept, or a concept where we kind of try to understand life and how we should optimally live on our old environment, and how we were really prepared and generated and honed for hundreds of thousands of years. Yeah? This old blueprint is somewhat how life was designed, and life in itself, propagating itself, adjusted to these old conditions, and we still have them in us. So, if we now gain weight, strangely enough, this weight gain is tied into every disease we have, and it's predominantly tied into the killer number one, which is heart disease. Statistically, doesn't mean now everybody who's overweight will have that problem, but statistically, yeah, as a tendency. And it's secondly tied into cancer. And it's seriously tied into cancer. And why? Because if, for example, someone has cancer, it's metastasized, and we want to find out where it all sits in the body, we do something called a PET scan, emission tomography. And what you do is you basically inject a sugar solution which is radioactively marked. And so then you scan the body, and now, and wherever cancer is, it shows up. Now, why does it show up? Because cancer cells like sugar. Actually, they live on sugar. So the cancer, the sugar goes and circles around and ends up where the cancer sits, and the cancer gobbles it up, and then you can see it on the PET scan.